great to be here. Hopefully you feel the same way, that it's been a wonderful morning. Has it been a wonderful morning? Yes. We get to worship with each other each and every week. And that's encouraging. It's encouraging to be here. And, you know, we go through so much every day. Some of you really deal with a lot. I don't know, it might be where you work. It might be the neighborhood that you live in, your school. There are things that happen in your life that are tough. And as a Christian, we are promised that we would have persecution. There would be times of trial, times that would be tough for us. But we gain our hope through knowing Jesus, knowing that promise that he's given us. And that's why we talk about unity. We need each other, that each week we come together. This is our time to recharge, to get our energy back, to find our joy, to find our hope, so that we can continue and go another week. Well, we're continuing our series, Better Together, and there's a story I want to tell. It was August of 2018, and there's this woman named Tara Gwynne Jaramillo. And she is a British-born freelance writer. Unfortunately, she had recently, at that time, lost her husband to cancer. And it was tough, a tough time for her. She was really down about life and the things that were happening. And she had written some work that she hadn't gotten paid for yet. At the time, she was living in Atlanta, Georgia. And now she had the responsibility of taking care of 4 rescued dogs, 2 rescued cats. Seems like a lot of rescued animals. But a rescued chicken named Dixie that she took care of. And then she had a disabled brother that she also cared for. On top of that was her little farm that they owned in Atlanta. And currently the water heater had gone out. And with all of the things she was dealing with her depression, the lack of money coming in, she just wasn't sure she was going to be able to eat. Well, a friend reached out and gave her a gift card for $250, said, please go buy some food. Buy the necessities that you need in your life. I know what you're taking care of. I know what you've dealt with. I know that funds are tight. Please go shopping. So she did. She went shopping. And that day, she's just, on the verge of this nervous breakdown, and she's putting all the food in her cart, starts to put it on the conveyor belt that's going up the line, and she starts looking at this and realizing, I am not paying attention. She had gotten way too much. She knew that this $250 wouldn't cover all of this food and other groceries. So she was really on the verge of this breakdown. And it started going down the conveyor belt, and it got to the cashier, and it started to bump into the groceries and things of the man in front of her, and she quickly said, oh, please stop. I need to get that back. I put too much in my cart. I'm not going to have enough money for this. Well, the gentleman turned to her and said, hey, you know what? I might as well get this too. Not just this, but all of this. Just put it on here. Don't put anything back. And he proceeded to pay for all of her groceries that day. She just couldn't believe that was going to happen. She said, there's no way. She called and stared into the eyes of this young African-American man, this stranger, as if he had dropped through the ceiling. Her words, like a black James Bond. But kind of like Batman. Did I mention that she's a writer? She started to cry. She couldn't believe that this was happening to her. And she said, I got to know your name. We're now connected. We're friends now, right? And he said his name was Chris. And so Tara and Chris hugged, and she thanked him for what ended up being $375 worth of groceries. She said, but who are you? And he said, I'm just a person. I'm just a guy. And she kept thinking to herself, does he know that he's an angel? Well, only later did she find out from the cashier that this man was not just a man named Chris. He was actually Ludacris, the Grammy-winning hip-hop artist known for his many hits in music, as well as his acting roles in the Fast and Furious movie franchise. Tara said that he was awesome run amok, and she promised to pay it forward by telling this story. He was just doing something kind for a disheveled, harried stranger, showing the love in his soul, shining a light in the world. What Ludacris had no way of knowing is that his quiet kindness and generous gesture came at a moment when my candle was out. He used his personal light to fire up my own. Great writing. She needs to get paid for that. But has anything ever happened to you like that, similarly? Maybe it wasn't by someone famous, like this, but having someone to step into your life and do something kind for you in a situation where you were just at your wit's end. You didn't know what to do with what was happening around you. It makes you feel good, right? You change. It makes your day. It increases your joy. You step a little more positively. Well, it makes you want to reach out and do kind things for other people, for someone else. And it will definitely lower stress and tension. As we continue to think about and look at this theme of unity, this theme, better together, I want us to look at this passage this morning that we're going to read in the Gospel of John. So if you'll turn over there to John 13, we're going to see Jesus doing something of more meaning than buying groceries. Jesus is going to perform an act of service in this passage for his disciples, and it had significant in meaning and impact for them and for us too today. And we ask, what does service look like? We talk about serving. We say that a lot. We talk about the ministries that we want to help serve. But what does service look like truly? So let's read our passage this morning together. John 13. We're going to read verses 1 through 17. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing, you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." And Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "The one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you." For he knew who was to betray him. And that was why he said, "Not all of you are clean." When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you also should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." Many of us have heard this familiar story. many times in our lives. Jesus taking a moment to wash his disciples' feet. And it seems like such an ordinary story to tell, for John to put this into his gospel. He did something pretty nice for his disciples. He's reminding them to serve each other. But it's a little bit bigger than this. I want us to take a moment to recognize the things that happen here in this story. And I might not tell you anything new this morning. You've probably heard countless sermons about this story. You've probably read books about this where Jesus washes their feet. You've probably heard a lot of the exegetical things about each of the things that happens within this story. I don't want to bore you this morning and just retell all of that. I do want to mention a few things and explain some of it, but I want to highlight some points about this, some things to think about. Jesus was at the point where he knew that it was time. This is a time that he had been waiting for. For years, Jesus would go out in his community and do different things, serving people, telling them about himself, healing people, raising people from the dead. And a lot of the time he would say, now, you don't need to say anything. Please don't tell anybody what I've done. Of course, people like the Samaritan woman, they immediately ran out and told everybody, come see the man who told me everything I've ever done in my life. But Jesus was waiting, saying, it's not my time. It's not my time yet. It has not come. Well, in this case, we read that Jesus knew that his hour had come. What would that feel like? What would it feel like to know that you would be dying soon? I think you'd want to be surrounded by your favorite people, much like he was. Maybe eat some of your favorite foods. You'd want to think about that, right? I want to eat this one last time because I know how that makes me feel. You might want to hear from others how you may have impacted the people around you. You'd probably want to sit back and let others serve you a little bit in your final moments. Maybe you can't help but be served because of your situation. But what does Jesus do? In this story, it looks like he does the opposite of that. He takes this moment, he gets down on his knees, and he serves his disciples. Jesus does the job of a hired slave or a bondservant to wash his disciples' feet. You probably already know this, but the people of this ancient Middle East time, they just didn't wear the newest Jordans or Hey Dudes, right? They wore sandals, and they walked everywhere. And their feet, they'd be dirty and calloused, maybe even a little bit smelly. Wouldn't be very nice to look at, let alone to touch them and to clean them. They probably smelled pretty bad. And then when you ate around a table like they were going to do here, they laid down. They reclined at the table. My feet might be in the face of the person sitting next to me. Not a pleasant place to be. So what do they do when they come inside but to wash their feet? And so Jesus, as they ate together, the tables being at floor level, he says, I need to wash your feet. Then I think that there's some principles of service that we need to look at in this whole story here. The first one is this, that no one is above serving. Amen. Jesus tells Peter and his disciples that he, as their teacher, as their Lord, as their master, he has done something special for them. He took on this role of a humble servant to show them that they should do this for other people too. We can read in Luke's account, the same gospel account of this time, that they were arguing amongst themselves about which one of them was to be regarded as the greatest. Well, let's look at that for a second. Luke chapter 22, he says this, but not so with you. Rather, let the greatest among you become as the youngest, and the leader as one who serves. For who is the greater? One who reclines at the table or one who serves? Is it not the one who reclines at table? But I am among you as the one who serves. And think about the scripture reading that we had read for us this morning already in Mark chapter 10, where he says, those who are the greatest must be slave to all. That's not what they expected to hear. Feeling that the way they did about greatness, Peter says, there's no way you're going to do this to me. This is beneath that special Messiah that we've heard about. The legends, if they're true, the prophecies about the coming Messiah, this king is supposed to reign on earth. There is no way this man is going to come and wash my feet when he should be out there conquering nations. They weren't ready to hear this. But this isn't what he was about. He stoops down to wash smelly feet. This is the cost of discipleship. It's a high calling, but it's so worth it, right? Jesus does not call us to a life of leisure, but one of labor. He doesn't call us down these sugar plum trails, but dirty, worn, sweat-stained paths. God's blessing comes to the genuine disciples, the ones who follow Jesus into a life of humble service. Of all the marks of discipleship, Jesus could have highlighted certain things. He highlighted a willingness to pick up a towel and get our hands dirty. Few things that we do make the gospel more beautiful and compelling than when someone sees Christians serving others. Everyday people doing everyday things to serve others. Jesus wanted his disciples to see that, to live that out. Number 2, the most humble sacrifice is the greatest gift. Let me say that again. The most humble sacrifice is the greatest gift. Jesus tells them that they won't understand what he's doing until afterward. Afterward. He washes the feet and says that they will understand later what he's done. That quickly. I would have been confused still. I don't know about you. He gets to Peter. Peter's adamant that Jesus not do this. And when Jesus tells him that he must do this, or Peter will have no share with him, Peter insists then that he wash his whole body. Wash my hands, wash my head as well. Well, when I was reading through this week, I started to wonder if Peter actually did understand what Jesus was trying to tell them. That the afterward would be his crucifixion. Jesus, if you're going to do this, then wash all of me. I'm a sinful man. I need all of my sin cleansed. Peter seemed to know the parallel of what Jesus was doing, showing that correlation between this washing and the crucifixion for sin. It's as though he understood the ancient prophecy, the ancient words about the coming Messiah's torture and death. And he tells him, Jesus, take all of my sin, not just that one bit. Take it all. Washing just my feet isn't enough. I need to be fully cleansed. For what you are doing, that can't be enough. I don't deserve this. I'm like that cup that you talked about. Clean on the outside, but on the inside, I'm dirty, full of sin and evil. You know, just a chapter previous to this, we saw Mary come and anoint Jesus' feet with perfume, this expensive perfume, showing that she was preparing him for his burial, almost as though she knew what Jesus was talking about, because Mary loved Jesus very much. And now a chapter later, Jesus returns that favor to his disciples, and he washes their feet. He says, I have to do this. Unless Jesus humbles himself as a servant, unless Jesus selflessly offers his life in Peter's place, Peter would have no ability to follow him. Jesus tells Peter that it isn't the depth of the sins that he's committed, but the necessity of Jesus' sacrifice. Washing his feet is enough, especially if he's bathed. This is enough for you. This is all you need. These disciples spent 3 years bathed in Jesus. So now he's just needing his feet washed, cleansing them with his sacrifice, knowing that this is the atonement for sin that he's about to do. Jesus' death and resurrection, all done for the sins of the world, will be the greatest gift that anyone receives. And Jesus died that humble death, undeserving of it, but willing to serve and to give. Number 3, serve everyone, even your enemies. You know, in the old law, in Deuteronomy chapter 28, God talked to the Israelites about loving their enemy. He says, you must love your enemy. This is what you're responsible for. Then Jesus in his Sermon on the Mount talked about not hating your enemy, but loving your enemy and praying for them and serving them, even going an extra mile if they ask you to. You've got to do this. You've got to go with them and serve your enemy. John's text said that he knew who was going to betray him. He knew that the devil had already put it into Judas Iscariot's heart. Yet Jesus washed Judas's feet along with those other 11 disciples. Makes me wonder what he was thinking about as he picked up Judas's dirty feet. What was going through Jesus' mind as he did that? As he washed the dirt and the sand off, cleaned his feet. Did he pray for him? Think about what he was about to do and maybe asking God, it doesn't have to be this way. Did he look into Judas's eyes as he was doing it, saying, I know that you've got that 30 pieces of silver in your pocket. You don't have to do this. We're called to serve our fellow believer in love and generosity. We are also called to be ready to serve an enemy. You know, these principles are fine, but I always have to say, so what? So what? What does this mean for us? Does this mean that now we have to reinstitute regular foot washing ceremonies? There are groups that do that. But I think service looks different for everyone. And so for some, it's probably working hard for another person, cleaning their house or raking their leaves, mowing their lawn. For others, it's helping someone who's down on their luck with some money to help them get to their next paycheck, much like the woman in our story this morning. You know, maybe it's people who serve by giving money. They have lots of money to give, and so they do that. For others, it's the gift of time and attention, listening to someone who might be dealing with heartache or tragedy. The reason I share these stories and these ideas this morning is to get us to see that we have today an opportunity to serve that will give us the same joy that foot washing gave to Jesus. You know, we are better together when we are serving together. Amen. Metro actually is having a ministry fair coming up next Sunday. I mentioned it this morning. It's in your bulletin. This lobby back here is going to be full of tables with different opportunities. Different ministries will be setting up their a list or a sign-up sheet, information about what they do in the ministries, the things that happen around here. They're hoping that maybe they will find others to join them and serve with them. These might be ministries that you benefit from, things that you love, things we do as a congregation that you enjoy, you love to be a part of it. You might want to sign up to help them. They might be ministries that put us in some of these smelly depths of feet. Not as fun to do, right? But they're a blessing and an encouragement to the people that have very little in their lives. You might want to sign up to help with that. I can tell you that it would be easy to leave as soon as we say amen at the close of our time next Sunday. You know, you might have lunch plans, maybe activities you do on Sunday that are pretty regular for you. I want to challenge you this morning, and I'll give the challenge again next Sunday as well. Stay for about 10 to 15 minutes afterwards and just check out what's happening at Metro. See what we're doing in our congregation and our community. And let me challenge you to at least look, at least talk with people. Sometimes we don't know what is happening. And maybe we didn't know that people were involved in certain ministries. And sometimes there are ministries we didn't even know that we had. You might be surprised next Sunday by what is going on here at Metro. If you're okay doing that much, let me ask you to take a step further, though. Take it a step further. Sign up to just help in one place. Just find one. And if you already serve in one, maybe find another one. It'll take a few extra minutes of your time every week. For those of us who are the 80%ers, do you know what I mean by that? 80% of the people doing most of the work, you know, or what is it, 20% of the people do 80% of the work, something like that. I'm not a statistics guy, so I wasn't always that good in math. But let me challenge you. Maybe there's something else you could add. Maybe there's something the 80%ers can do. You're already doing a lot. Maybe there's room for a little bit more. Let us be an involved and fully present congregation and encourage those who are working hard. You know, maybe you already do way too much. There's not much more you can fit into your schedule. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to wash someone's feet. Go find a ministry that you really appreciate. Write them a card. Maybe get them a small token of your appreciation, a gift, and thank them for what they do. You know, Sundays are awesome. It fills me up every week. It gets me ready to endure that coming week. All the things that I've got to endure, the trials, the persecutions of this world. But I get more joy when I serve other people. I want to encourage you with that and challenge you with that. I can tell you that I plan to see what's happening and maybe to sign up for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know, areas of ministry that I would love to be a part of and help with. I don't plan to just preach every Sunday. I want to be involved here at Metro. This is a body. We need the hands and the feet. We need as we talked about, the brains and the hearts. But we also need the fingernails, the gallbladders, the appendixes. You think they're unnecessary? No, we need those. We need them. I want to encourage you to think about that. How can you help Metro to thrive? We've got an awesome responsibility as God's people. And so this morning, my invitation to you is simply this. Is this difficult? Has this been a challenge for you in your life? I want to give you the opportunity this morning that we can talk about that. How can I help you to be more fully present with the body? Or maybe there's something else happening in your life and you need prayer. We want to do that as well this morning. So whatever your need is this morning, let's come while we stand and sing.